Today is Tuesday, July 25th. We are talking about a controversial law in Israel that could sink the country further into a political crisis and have far-reaching impacts. We have reaction from inside Israel and here in the U.S. Also, it's the White House versus Texas. Again, they're going to court over some hardline enforcement at the U.S. Mexico border. Plus, which Republican presidential candidates have qualified for the first debate? Why one country song has been especially divisive in the U.S., but not on the charts. And how TikTok is now challenging what used to be called Twitter. Those stories and more news to know in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The world is keeping a close eye on Israel this week, where the country is in the middle of a political crisis that's now raising national security fears. The country's parliament passed a controversial judicial overhaul yesterday, even though there have been anti-government protests over this for months. And thousands of Israeli reservists, like fighter pilots and members of intelligence, cyber, and special operations units, have all warned they will not report to duty once the bill passes. Israel's medical workers union announced a general strike starting today. Israel's main workers union is also in the process of going on strike. And in a highly unusual step, President Biden back here in the U.S. urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to rush the vote, saying he was concerned about the potential implications of the bill. Despite all that, the bill passed yesterday. So why is it so controversial in the first place? Well, the main reason, it limits the Israeli Supreme Court's oversight of the government actions and policies. Prime Minister Netanyahu says changes are needed to end judicial overreach by unelected judges. But critics say the reforms will weaken the country's courts and take away a democratic system of checks and balances. Local news outlets say Israel's domestic intelligence agency has warned the country could deteriorate into chaos. But really, the bill that passed yesterday was just one part of the overhaul. Another bill already voted through makes it tougher for a sitting prime minister to be declared unfit for office. And reports say the next part will likely change the system for appointing judges to give politicians more power in the appointment process. It's not clear when the parliament will vote on that part, so stay tuned. The Texas governor is doubling down on defying the federal government, and now it's become a legal fight over efforts to stop migrants at the southern border. The U.S. Justice Department is now suing because Texas installed floating barriers in the Rio Grande River to block people trying to sneak into the U.S. from Mexico. The DOJ says those barriers violate the River and Harbors Act, which bans any water obstructions placed without government approval. The White House says the barriers also make it more likely that migrants drown and keep Border Patrol agents from patrolling the river. But in response, Texas Governor Greg Abbott wrote a letter that says Texas has a right to try and stop unauthorized border crossings. He went on to blame President Biden, saying, quote, "Your open border policies encourage migrants to risk their lives by crossing illegally through the water." Abbott says the barriers may have kept hundreds of thousands of people from entering the country illegally just since they were put up last week. Though the Biden administration argues the number of illegal crossings is actually down because of the federal government's revamped border strategy. Either way, it looks like a court will be deciding on the floating barriers, while the U.S. Justice Department keeps investigating other parts of the Texas border operation. Today, the White House is set to announce a new national monument. It will be dedicated to Emmett Till, whose murder helped spark the civil rights movement, as well as his mother, Mamie Till Mobley, who was instrumental in keeping the story of his death alive. Till is the Black 14-year-old who was killed after he was accused of making unwanted sexual advances at a white woman in Mississippi back in 1955. The two men who did it were cleared by an all-white jury, even though they later admitted to killing Till. And in recent years, the U.S. Justice Department has even raised doubts about whether Till propositioned the woman in the first place. Now the White House is set to establish the new monument across 3 locations in Illinois and Mississippi. Biden is expected to sign a proclamation today, which would have been Till's 82nd birthday. We are now less than 1 month away from the first debate of the 2024 presidential campaign season, and already 6 candidates have qualified for the debate stage. They are former President Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. To qualify, candidates have to register at least 1% in at least 3 legit polls. Plus, they have to have gathered contributions from at least 40,000 individual donors. All 6 have met both of those qualifications already, but they also have to meet a third requirement, which is they have to promise to support the eventual Republican nominee. That's something not everyone has done yet. And former President Trump says he might not debate anyway, but no formal decision on that yet. By the way, it's not too late for the other 8 Republican candidates to make the cut for the debate either. Fox News anchors Bret Baier and Martha MacCallum are set to moderate the debate August 23rd in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have much more news for you still ahead, but first, thanks to our sponsor, AG1. AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that can replace your multivitamin and probiotic and really support whole body health. I had heard about AG1 before, but I can tell you that after actually trying it and making it part of my everyday, it has lived up to the hype. I drink AG1 in the morning, usually as I'm getting my toddler breakfast or starting my workday, before I've eaten anything else. And I notice I really do reach for my tea or coffee less often, or at least I forget about it for a while, because drinking AG1 makes me feel energized and ready to take on the day. I also appreciate that it's easy to put in a to-go cup on especially busy days, and that it's just this one simple drinkable habit. 1 scoop of AG1 mixed with water, that's it. It's one of the easiest habits I've started since it makes me feel good. If you are looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. The heat wave that's been baking the southern U.S. for weeks is now spreading into more of the country. Today, it's expected to expand across the Great Basin and parts of the Rockies before eventually extending across the plains and Midwest tomorrow, then the East Coast by the end of the week. But note, we said this heat is expanding, not moving. There's still no relief in sight for the Southwest, like Phoenix, that has now gone more than 3 weeks straight with high temperatures at or above 110 degrees. Or El Paso, Texas, that's also set record-long triple-digit temperature streaks. Over the next few days, highs elsewhere are expected to be in the upper 90s to near 100 degrees, too, even as far north as the Twin Cities and as far east as New York City and Washington, D.C., with humidity making it feel even hotter than that. It's not just the U.S. either, but several other countries worldwide are also dealing with historic heat, and July is on track to be the Earth's warmest month on record. The guy behind ChatGPT has now come up with an eyeball-scanning cryptocurrency project. WorldCoin launched yesterday. It was founded by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman 3 years ago and has raised about $250 million since. The company's core offering is its World ID. To get one, a customer signs up to do an in-person iris scan using a WorldCoin orb, which is about the size of a bowling ball. Once the orb's iris scan verifies the person is a real human, it creates a World ID. Then people can start to use a cryptocurrency that's also named WorldCoin, as well as an app that lets people make payments, purchases, and transfers, and more. But WorldCoin has its fair share of critics, too. Mostly people who are worried about the privacy risks involved with collecting, storing, and using data from eye scans. Still, Altman says he hopes to get 2 billion users signed up for WorldCoin now that it's formally launched. To be continued. It looks like X, formerly known as Twitter, has some brand new competition. TikTok is now adding text-only posts to its short-form video app. The text posts look a lot like Instagram stories, actually. Users can add a background color, edit how the text appears, and have options to add music and stickers. Other users can also respond the same way they do with the video posts. Of course, the timing is worth noting, since other platforms like Instagram's Threads and the lesser-known Blue Sky, Mastodon, and others are trying to position themselves as replacements to Twitter, or at least they're trying to take parts of the old Twitter playbook in hopes of finding success. And since TikTok is already the most downloaded app in the world with more than 1 billion active users, it's in a good place to experiment. The new text feature is available now. Have you heard about the controversy surrounding a popular new country song? We're talking about Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town. It was actually released back in May, but it was basically overlooked. That is, until the video came out more recently. It lasted just 1 weekend on CMT before the network pulled it in response to outcry. The video was shot in front of the Murray County Courthouse in Columbia, Tennessee, which was the site of a race riot in 1946 and a mob lynching of a black teen in 1927. And that video, mixed with lyrics about him daring someone to act badly in a small town, along with mentioning the gun he has, made for a lot of backlash. Critics say the song and video are racist and pro-violence. while Aldean says that's not true and defends himself of being a victim of so-called cancel culture. Either way, the controversy seems to have taken the song to new heights. Before the music video was released on July 14th, the song had fewer than 1 million streams in the U.S. But in the week that video came out, the song hit 11.7 million streams, a 1,000% increase from the previous week. Soccer seems to be growing more popular here in the U.S. Team USA's first game at the Women's World Cup attracted, on average, 6.5 million viewers on Fox and another million viewers on Telemundo. That's apparently a 99% increase from Team USA's opener in the last Women's World Cup. It actually might have drawn in even more viewers, except for that it was happening at the same time Lionel Messi was making his highly anticipated MLS debut with Inter Miami. Next up, the U.S. women's national team will face the Netherlands tomorrow. Again, it's at 9 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all know that change is inevitable, but sometimes in the middle of a big change, in that transition period, you might feel a little lost or stuck, or it just doesn't match what you expected. I know I felt a version of those things when I started my own business and again when I became a parent. Both have been amazing changes in my life, and yet I appreciated having a therapist to support me through them. I believe therapy helped me become a better version of myself, which ultimately means I'm a better leader for my team and a better parent for my son. If you're just getting started with therapy, BetterHelp is an entirely online option that helps to make therapy more convenient and flexible. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Really, find that one therapist you really click with. And let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. And today's trivia question is, who was the highest paid athlete in 2022? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. Simply sign up to get it at thenewsworthy.com/email or find the link in today's episode notes. As for last week's trivia question, what made the loudest sound ever recorded? The answer is the Krakatoa volcano eruption back in 1883. It was so loud that it could be heard thousands of miles away. And for those who were close to it, it was actually dangerous. It blew out the eardrums of people within 40 miles. About 100 miles away, a barometer showed the eruption clocked 172 decibels of sound. To put that into perspective, the human threshold for pain is 130 decibels. And each 10 decibel increase on top of that is perceived as the sound doubling. So needless to say, anyone within about 100 miles had a very hard time that day. And we're hoping that record is not broken for a long while. All right, thank you so much for listening today and making us part of your daily routine. We will be back with much more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.